It was just after sunrise when I eased the locomotive down the line toward mile marker 42. Cold morning. Thin
Fine,
fog
I admit
sitting
it.
low over the
But we have to
tracks.
go right
The
now,
kind of
before it's too
quiet you
late.
only get out there. No traffic, no voices, just steel and distance and the slow rhythm of the engine under your hands. I'd run that route hundreds of times. Same crossing, same timing, same stretch of road that cut through a newer subdivision that hadn't been there 10 years ago. Maple Ridge Estates, nice homes, clean lawns, and, as I'd learned over the past few months, an HOA that thought it had more reach than it actually did. I throttled down as I approached the crossing. Standard procedure: horn, brake pressure steady, eyes forward, and that's when I saw it. A white SUV, parked sideways, blocking the tracks, not stalled, not stuck, parked. A driver standing outside the vehicle, hands on hips, like she was waiting for something, or someone. I hit the horn again, longer this time, nothing. She didn't move, didn't even look concerned, just stood there like she had all the time in the world. I leaned forward slightly, squinting through the windshield, and then I recognized her, Karen Whitmore, HOA president, same woman who had been sending letters to half the neighborhood about unauthorized vehicle activity near community boundaries, same woman who had filed 2 complaints about excessive rail noise through the county, which, I'll be honest, is not something I'd ever heard taken seriously. But there she was, standing on a public crossing, blocking a live railway like it was a parking dispute. And that's when I realized something. She had no idea who was in that cab or what kind of situation she'd just created. So let me ask you something. What would you do if someone decided the rules didn't apply to them, right in front of 180 tons of steel that absolutely don't negotiate? My name is Daniel Reeves. Most people know me as a structural engineer. That's what I did for most of my career. Bridges, load systems, infrastructure projects. But about 6 years ago, I shifted, partly by choice, partly by opportunity. A friend of mine worked with a regional freight company, short line operations, smaller routes, less volume. They needed someone who understood systems, someone who could handle both the mechanical side and the procedural side. So I trained, got certified, and started running occasional routes, not full-time, but enough to know every inch of track between here and the county line, including that crossing. Now here's the part Karen didn't understand. Railroads don't operate on suggestion. They operate on schedule, safety, and federal regulation. And a blocked crossing? That's not an inconvenience. That's a violation, a serious one. But Karen didn't see it that way, because to her, everything was local, everything was negotiable, everything could be managed, controlled, adjusted, and for a while, that mindset had worked, at least inside her HOA. I'd heard about her long before that morning. Letters about lawn height, warnings about mailbox design, complaints about parked vehicles, fence colors, holiday decorations, the usual, but then it started reaching beyond the neighborhood. Complaints to the county about noise disturbances, emails to the rail company about schedule disruptions. One message, from what I was told, actually suggested that train traffic should be coordinated with community quiet hours. Which, again, that's not how railways work, at all. Most people ignored her. Some pushed back. But Karen had a pattern. She didn't stop. She escalated. And eventually, she stepped into something she didn't understand, like that crossing. That morning, I hit the horn again. Long, continuous, standard warning. Still nothing. She finally turned and looked up at the locomotive. Not scared, not surprised, annoyed. She actually raised a hand, like she was signaling me to wait. I remember sitting there for a second, looking at her, then looking at the tracks in front of me, and thinking, this is about to get very real for her. I brought the train to a controlled stop, Full protocol, brake set, engine idling low. Then I keyed the radio and reported the obstruction. Dispatcher acknowledged immediately. Vehicle on crossing, mile marker 42, law enforcement notified. That part happens fast, because it has to. Then I stepped down from the cab, boots hitting gravel, cold air sharper now, and started walking toward her. She crossed her arms as I approached. You need to stop bringing this train through here so early, she said. No greeting, no hesitation, just instruction. I nodded once. Calm, measured. This is an active rail crossing, I said. You need to move your vehicle immediately. She shook her head. This community has filed multiple complaints about this route. You're disturbing residents. I looked at her for a second, then at the SUV, then back at her. This isn't a community road, I said. It's a federal rail line. She smiled slightly, the kind of smile people use when they think they're in control. We have jurisdiction over this area, she said. That word, jurisdiction, used confidently, incorrectly, and that's when I knew. She didn't just misunderstand the situation. She had built an entire belief system around being right. I took a step back, pulled out my phone, started recording. Just to be clear, I said, you're intentionally blocking an active railway crossing? She didn't like that. You could see it, the shift. But she doubled down. I'm preventing a disruption to the community. I nodded and kept recording. Because at that point, this wasn't about moving a car. This was about documentation. And once documentation starts, everything changes. We stood there for maybe 3 minutes, engine idling behind me, fog starting to lift, silence stretching out across the crossing. Then we heard it. Sirens, low at first, then closer. 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled up from the east side of the road, lights on, no urgency, just certainty. The deputies stepped out, took in the scene, the train, the blocked tracks, Karen standing there like she was hosting the situation. One of them looked at me. You the engineer? Yes, sir. He nodded, then turned to her. Ma'am, you need to move your vehicle now. She stepped forward slightly. This is a residential issue. No, he said, cutting her off. Well, it's not. And that was the moment, the exact moment, where the structure she had built in her head started to come apart. This is a federally regulated rail crossing, he continued. You are obstructing it. Her expression shifted, not dramatically, but enough. I was trying to... I understand, he said, but you can't do this. There was a pause. Then she turned, walked to her SUV, got in, and moved it, just like that. But the situation didn't end there, because once something like this gets reported, it doesn't disappear. There's a record, and records, they don't forget. I went back to the cab, cleared the crossing, continued the route, but by the time I got back later that afternoon, the follow-up had already started. The rail company filed an incident report. County logged it. And because of the nature of the obstruction, it triggered a formal review, not just of that moment, but of prior complaints, emails, communications, everything. And that's where things started to unravel. Because Karen hadn't just blocked a crossing. She had been building a case, sending messages, making claims, all of it documented, all of it now under review. Within a few weeks, the HOA received notice, formal, detailed, clarifying in very clear terms that they had zero authority over rail operations, that interference could result in fines, and that further incidents would escalate. Karen didn't send any more emails after that, didn't file any more complaints, didn't show up at the crossing again. And from what I heard, she stepped down from the board a few months later, quietly. No announcement, and no explanation. Just gone. A few weeks after everything settled, I ran that route again. Same crossing, same timing. Sun just coming up over the trees, and this time, the road was clear. No cars, no interruptions, just open track. I slowed slightly as I passed through, out of habit more than anything. Looked to the side, empty, calm, the way it's supposed to be, and I thought about something. Karen didn't start by blocking a train. She started with complaints, suggestions, small attempts to control things just outside her reach, and every time nothing pushed back, she went a little further. Until one day, she stepped directly into something that doesn't bend: steel, procedure, law, and assumed it would move for her. That assumption, that's where she lost. Because in situations like that, confidence doesn't win, authority doesn't win, documentation does, reality does. So I'll leave you with this. Have you ever seen someone push too far just because no one stopped them early? Because most of the time, that's exactly how these situations end. Not with an argument, not with a warning, but with a moment where everything they thought they controlled stops right in front of them.